Admiral Yuna stood on the observation deck of the battleship Eternal Dawn. She watched the blue and green planet below her. Earth. Her home. The place where she was born. The place where her mother still lived. The place where billions of humans went about their daily lives, unaware of what was about to happen. Behind her, the communication officer spoke with a shaking voice. "Admiral, the Galactic Council has finished voting." Yuna did not turn around. She already knew the result. She had known it for weeks. The aliens had made their decision long before the official vote. This was just theater. A show to make their crime look legal. "What was the vote?" she asked, her voice calm and cold. 947 species voted yes. 3 voted no. 12 did not vote at all. Yuna closed her eyes. 947 species had decided that humanity should die. 947 different races had looked at humans and decided they were too dangerous to live, too aggressive, too unpredictable, too willing to fight. "The 3 who voted no," Yuna said. "Who were they?" "The Bora, the Keelix, and the Ven, Admiral." She nodded slowly. She would remember those names. If any humans survived what was coming, they would remember those 3 species. They would be protected. They would be honored. The rest would face judgment. The first explosions came without warning. Yuna watched as bright lights appeared across Earth's surface. The alien fleet had begun its attack. They were bombing the major cities first. Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, Mumbai, Beijing. Each flash of light meant millions of deaths. "Admiral," the communication officer shouted, "we are receiving distress calls from all human colonies. The aliens are attacking everywhere at once." Yuna finally turned around. Her bridge crew looked at her with fear in their eyes. They were young. Most of them had never seen real combat. They had joined the Navy during peacetime, thinking they would explore the stars and make new friends among the alien races. Now they understood the truth. The galaxy had never wanted to be friends with humanity. "How many ships do we have in orbit?" Yuna asked. 47 warships, Admiral, but the alien fleet number's over 2,000. Yuna walked to her command chair and sat down. She looked at the faces of her crew. She saw their terror. She saw their confusion. But she also saw something else. She saw anger. Good. Anger would keep them alive. "Listen to me," she said, her voice carrying across the silent bridge. "We cannot save Earth. We cannot stop this attack. But we can save some of our people. We will break through the alien lines. We will gather every human ship we can find. And we will run." "Run where, Admiral?" asked Lieutenant Tejo, her second in command. He was a tall man with steady hands and sharp eyes. He had been born on Mars, the first human born outside of Earth. Now Mars was burning too. "Into the dark," Yuna answered. "Into the empty spaces between stars where no one goes. We will hide. We will survive. And one day, we will return." The Eternal Dawn shook as enemy fire struck its shields. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. On the screens, Yuna could see more alien vessels arriving. They were coming from every direction. This was not just an attack. This was an extermination. "All ships. This is Admiral Yuna," she spoke into the fleet channel. "Abandon defensive positions. Protect civilian transports. We are leaving this system." The battle that followed was chaos. Human ships fought desperately against impossible odds. For every alien vessel they destroyed, 10 more took its place. The Eternal Dawn led the retreat, its weapons firing constantly as it carved a path through the enemy fleet. Yuna watched the tactical display as human ships died one by one. Each disappearing icon was 1,000 lives lost. Each explosion was another family ended. She forced herself to watch. She forced herself to remember. This pain would fuel humanity for centuries. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the Council flagship," the communication officer reported. "Put it through." The screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. It was High Chancellor Vorn of the Talix species. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 black eyes. He had been the one who proposed the resolution to destroy humanity. He had given speeches about how humans were a disease that threatened galactic peace. "Admiral Una," Vorn said, his translator making his words sound hollow and mechanical. "This is unnecessary. Surrender your fleet. Accept your fate with dignity. Your species has been judged and found wanting. The galaxy will be safer without you." Una stared at the alien's face. She memorized every detail. The pattern of his gray skin. The way his 4 eyes blinked one at a time. The small movements of his thin mouth. "Chancellor Vorn," she replied, "I want you to remember this moment. Remember my face. Remember my words. Because one day, a human will find you, and on that day, you will understand what a terrible mistake you have made." She cut the transmission. The human fleet fought for 6 more hours. They lost 31 ships, but they saved over 200 civilian transports carrying almost 1 million survivors. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. As the eternal dawn jumped into hyperspace, Una took one last look at Earth. The planet was covered in fire and smoke. The oceans were boiling. The continents were cracked and broken. 8 billion humans had lived there that morning. By now, most of them were dead. "Admiral," Lieutenant Tejo said quietly, standing beside her. "Where do we go now?" Una did not answer for a long moment. She was thinking about her mother. Her mother had been a teacher in a small town near the sea. She had taught children how to read and write. She had made soup for Una every time she came home to visit. She was gone now. Everyone was gone. "We go to the dark places," Una finally said. "The regions of space that no one wants. We will find a place to hide. We will rebuild. We will grow strong. And we will wait." Wait for what? Una turned to face her crew. They were all watching her. They needed hope. They needed purpose. They needed a reason to keep living after everything they had lost. "We will wait for the galaxy to forget us," she said. "We will wait for them to grow comfortable and lazy. We will wait for them to believe that they succeeded. And when they least expect it, when they think they are safe, we will remind them of what they did today. We will remind them that humans never forget, and we will make them pay for every single life they took." The bridge was silent. Then, slowly, Tejo nodded. One by one, the rest of the crew nodded too. They understood. This was not the end of humanity. This was the beginning of something new, something darker, something patient. The eternal dawn carried its crew into the void between stars. Behind them, Earth continued to burn. The alien fleets celebrated their victory. The Galactic Council declared that the human threat had been eliminated. Across 1,000 worlds, aliens cheered and congratulated themselves for making the galaxy safe. They did not know that they had made a terrible mistake. They did not know that somewhere in the darkness, a wounded species was beginning to plan. They did not know that humanity would spend the next 300 years preparing for revenge. They would learn. In time, they would all learn. But by then, it would be far too late. 300 years passed. The galaxy moved on. In the great halls of the Galactic Council, no one spoke of humans anymore. The war against humanity had become a footnote in history books. Children of 1,000 species learned about it in school. They were taught that humans had been dangerous primitives who threatened galactic peace. They were taught that the Council had done the right thing by eliminating them. They were taught that the galaxy was better off without humans. High Chancellor Vorn had died 60 years after the war. He had been celebrated as a hero. Statues of him stood in capital cities across the galaxy. He had saved everyone from the human threat. He had made the hard choice that no one else was willing to make. He had died peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by his family, believing that he had done the right thing. The Talix species had grown powerful in the centuries since the war. They controlled the most important trade routes. They had the strongest economy. They had the biggest voice in the council. Many other species resented them, but no one dared to challenge them. The Talix had led the war against humanity. They had proven that they were willing to do whatever was necessary to protect their interests. In a forgotten region of space, far from any trade routes or colony worlds, Commander Tejo stood on the bridge of the warship Silent Fury. He was old now. His hair had turned white, his face was lined with wrinkles. But his eyes were still sharp, his hands were still steady, and his hatred was still burning. "Status report," he said to his crew. "All systems functioning normally, Commander," replied Captain Sujin, his second in command. She was young, born in the hidden colonies that humanity had built in the darkness. She had never seen Earth. She had never met an alien. But she knew the stories. Every human child learned the stories. Production numbers? The shipyards completed 12 more vessels this month. That brings our total fleet to 9,842 warships. Tejo nodded. It was not enough. Not yet. But they were getting close. The human survivors had fled to the darkest corners of the galaxy. They had found dead systems with no habitable planets. They had built stations inside asteroids. They had made homes in places where no sane species would ever look. And they had begun to rebuild. The first generation had been the hardest. They had almost nothing. Their ships were damaged. Their supplies were limited. Many people died from hunger and disease. But they did not give up. They could not give up. They had a purpose that kept them alive. Revenge. Admiral Yuna had led them for 50 years before she died. On her deathbed, she had made her officers swear an oath. They would never forget what the galaxy had done to humanity. They would never forgive. They would build a fleet so powerful that no one could stand against it. And they would make the galaxy pay. Her successors had kept that oath. They had focused all of humanity's energy on one goal. Ships. They needed ships. They needed weapons. They needed technology that could defeat the combined might of 1,000 alien species. At first, they had only managed to build simple vessels. But humans were clever. Humans were creative. Humans learned quickly. Within 100 years, they had developed technology that the galaxy had never seen. Cloaking devices that made their ships invisible. Weapons that could tear through any shield. Engines that were faster than anything else in space. Tejo walked through the corridors of the Silent Fury. The ship was massive, larger than any vessel the aliens had ever built. It carried enough firepower to destroy a planet, and it was just one of nearly 10,000 ships in the human fleet. He reached the observation deck and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the aliens lived their comfortable lives. They went to work. They raised their families. They celebrated holidays. They had no idea that death was waiting for them in the darkness. "Commander," Sujin said, joining him at the window. "The council is meeting next month. All 947 species that voted for our extinction will have representatives there." "I know. The Grand Admiral wants to know if we are ready." Tejo smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "We have been ready for 100 years. We were just waiting for the right moment. And is this the right moment? It is. The galaxy has forgotten us. They think we are extinct. They have grown soft and lazy. Their fleets are weak. Their defenses are old. They spend more money on entertainment than on military. They have no idea what is coming." Quote, Sujin was quiet for a moment. "My grandmother was born on Earth," she said. She was 3 years old when the attack happened. She remembered the fire. She remembered the screams. She told me about it every night before bed. She made me promise that I would never forget. "None of us have forgotten," Tejo said. "That is why we have survived. That is why we have grown strong. Memory is the most powerful weapon in the universe." In the hidden colonies, 10 million humans prepared for war. They had been preparing their entire lives. Every child learned how to fight. Every adult served in the military. Every factory built weapons. Every scientist worked on new technology. There was no art. There was no music. There was no entertainment. There was only the mission. Some people had questioned this. Some had said that humanity had lost its soul. They had become machines of revenge. They had forgotten how to be human. But those voices had been silenced. There would be time for art and music and joy after the mission was complete. There would be time to be human again, after the galaxy had paid for its crimes. Tejo remembered the old admiral's final words. Yuna had called him to her side as she lay dying. She had gripped his hand with surprising strength. "Do not let them die in vain," she had whispered. "All those billions of souls. They are watching us. They are waiting. Promise me, Tejo. Promise me that you will finish what we started." He had promised. And he had kept that promise for over 200 years. Now he was old. His body was failing. But he would live long enough to see the beginning of the end. He would live long enough to watch the aliens realize their mistake. "Tell the Grand Admiral," Tejo said to Sujin, "that Commander Tejo's fleet is ready. 10,000 ships. 50 million soldiers. We will strike at the heart of the galaxy. We will show them what happens when you try to kill humanity." Sujin saluted and left to deliver the message. Tejo stayed at the window. He thought about his parents, who had died on Mars. He thought about his friends, who had burned with Earth. He thought about all the children who had never been born because the aliens had decided that humans did not deserve to exist. "Soon," he whispered to the darkness. "Soon. We will remind them why they were afraid of us. Soon. They will understand that they should have finished the job. They should have hunted down every last human. They should have burned every ship and killed every survivor. But they were lazy. They were arrogant." The stars twinkled silently. They did not care about the affairs of living creatures. They had seen species rise and fall for billions of years. They would see many more. But even the ancient stars had never witnessed what was about to happen. They had never seen a species so patient, so dedicated, so full of cold rage. Humanity had waited 300 years. They had sacrificed everything. They had turned themselves into weapons. And now, finally, they were ready. The silence was about to end. The planet Talos Prime was beautiful. It was the capital world of the Talic species and the heart of the Galactic Council. Tall silver towers reached toward the purple sky. Gardens filled with colorful flowers covered every open space. Flying vehicles moved through the air in perfect patterns. Everything was clean. Everything was ordered. Everything was peaceful. In the Grand Council Hall, representatives from 947 species had gathered. This was the anniversary celebration. 300 years ago, they had voted to eliminate the human threat. Every year, they gathered to remember that historic decision. They gave speeches about peace and unity. They congratulated themselves on their wisdom. They promised to keep the galaxy safe from any future threats. High Chancellor Brix of the Talic species stood at the central podium. He was the great-grandson of Chancellor Vorn, the hero who had led the war against humanity. He wore ceremonial robes covered in precious metals. His 4 black eyes scanned the massive hall with pride. "Today, we celebrate 300 years of peace," he announced. 300 years ago, our ancestors faced a terrible threat. The humans were violent. They were unpredictable. They would have destroyed everything we built. But our wise council made the difficult choice to protect the galaxy. And because of their sacrifice, we live in an age of prosperity. The audience applauded. Thousands of aliens of every shape and size clapped their hands, tentacles, and other limbs. They believed what Brix was saying. They had been taught since birth that the war against humanity was necessary. They had never questioned it. Captain Hana watched the celebration from orbit. Her ship, the Phantom Star, hung silently above Talos Prime. The aliens could not see her. Human cloaking technology was far beyond anything they had ever developed. She could destroy their entire orbital defense network before they even knew she was there. "Captain," said Lieutenant Jiwoo, her tactical officer. "All fleets are in position. We are awaiting your command." Hana nodded slowly. This was the moment that humanity had been waiting for. 300 years of pain. 300 years of planning. 300 years of patient rage. It all came down to this. "Open a channel to the Grand Admiral," she ordered. The screen flickered, and Grand Admiral Yuna appeared. She was not the same Yuna who had led the survivors away from Earth. That Yuna had died 250 years ago. This was her descendant, named in her honor. She carried the same fire in her eyes. "Admiral," Hana said, "the council is in session. All enemy ships are at the celebration. Their defenses are minimal." "I know," the admiral replied. "I have been watching. Is your crew ready?" "We have been ready our entire lives." The admiral smiled. It was a cold smile, filled with centuries of remembered pain. "Then let us remind the galaxy what they forgot. All ships, prepare to decloak. Captain Hana, you will broadcast our message." "Yes, Admiral." Hana turned to her communication officer. "Open all channels. Every frequency. I want every being in this system to hear what I am about to say." Kana turning $7 Kana about people. Down in the Grand Council Hall, Chancellor Brix was continuing his speech. He was talking about the future. He was talking about expansion and trade and cultural exchange. He was talking about how the galaxy would continue to prosper for another 1,000 years. His words stopped when every screen in the hall suddenly went dark. A new face appeared on every display. It was a human woman with black hair and dark eyes. She wore a military uniform with symbols that no one in the galaxy recognized. Behind her, other humans worked at control stations. The hall fell completely silent. For a moment, no one understood what they were seeing. Humans were extinct. Humans had been gone for 300 years. This had to be some kind of trick. "My name is Captain Hana of the Human Navy," the woman said. "I am speaking to all citizens of the Galactic Council. 300 years ago, you voted to destroy my species. You burned our world. You killed our families. You thought you had won." Panic began to spread through the hall. Aliens screamed and ran for the exits. Others stood frozen in shock. Chancellor Brix gripped his podium, his 4 eyes wide with terror. "You were wrong," Hana continued. "We survived, we grew strong, and now we have returned." The sky above Talos Prime began to change. First, one ship appeared from nowhere. Then 10. Then 100. Then 1,000. Human warships decloaked in perfect formation, blocking out the stars. Each ship was massive, bristling with weapons. The alien defense fleet, caught completely by surprise, scrambled to respond. "You should have killed us all," Hana said. "You should have hunted down every survivor. You should have searched every corner of the galaxy until not a single human remained. But you did not. You celebrated. You built statues to the beings who murdered our children. You taught your offspring that what you did was right. And for 300 years, we remembered. We planned. We waited." In the council hall, aliens were trampling each other trying to escape. Some knelt on the floor, praying to their gods. Others simply stared at the screens, unable to move. They were watching their doom arrive. "There are 10,000 ships above your capital," Hana announced. "There are another 100,000 spread throughout the galaxy, above every world belonging to every species that voted for our extinction. You cannot fight us. You cannot run from us. You cannot hide from us. We are everywhere. And we have come to collect our debt." The alien defense fleet opened fire. Their weapons struck the human ships and did nothing. The shields absorbed every attack. The human vessels did not even slow down. Hana watched the alien weapons fail. She felt no joy. She felt no triumph. She only felt the weight of 300 years of loss. "Today, the galaxy will learn a lesson," she said. "When you try to destroy a species, make sure you finish the job. Because if even one of us survives, we will come back. We will always come back, and we will never, ever forget." The human fleet began its attack. Bright beams of energy lanced down from orbit, striking the alien warships. One by one, the defenders exploded into clouds of fire and metal. The battle lasted less than 3 minutes. When it was over, not a single alien vessel remained. In the council hall, Chancellor Brix watched his fleet die. He watched his world's defenses crumble. He watched everything his species had built threatened by creatures that should have been extinct. "This cannot be happening," he whispered. "We destroyed them. We made sure. There was nothing left." But there was. There had always been something left. A spark of life. A seed of revenge. And it had grown in the darkness for 300 years. Nourished by memory and hate. Hana ended her broadcast. She had said what needed to be said. Now it was time for action. "Lieutenant Jiwoo," she ordered. "Target their orbital stations. Begin landing operations. The ground forces are waiting." "Yes, Captain." The Phantom Star moved into attack position. Around it, thousands of other human ships did the same. Drop pods launched from their hulls, carrying soldiers to the surface. The invasion of Talos Prime had begun. Captain Hana stood at her command station and watched the alien world below. Somewhere down there, Chancellor Brix was probably trying to escape. He would not succeed. None of them would succeed. Humanity had spent 300 years making sure of that. "For Earth," she whispered. "For everyone we lost. For everyone who never got to grow up. For every dream that was destroyed. This is for all of you." The human fleet descended upon the capital of the Galactic Council. After 3 centuries of silence, humanity had announced its return, and the galaxy would never be the same. Lieutenant Minho dropped from the sky in a metal pod. The ground shook when he landed. Around him, thousands of other pods crashed into the streets of Talos Prime. The invasion had begun. He kicked open his pod door and stepped out into chaos. Aliens ran in every direction, screaming in languages he did not understand. Buildings burned. Sirens wailed. The sky was filled with human ships raining fire on military targets. "Squad 7, form up on me," Minho ordered through his helmet radio. His soldiers emerged from their own pods. They moved with perfect discipline, taking positions around him. Each one carried enough weapons to destroy a small army. Each one had trained their entire life for this moment. "Remember your targets," Minho said. "Military and government only. Civilians are not our enemy. They did not vote to destroy us. Their leaders did. Their soldiers did. Those are the ones who will pay." The squad moved through the streets. Alien soldiers appeared and tried to stop them. They lasted only seconds. Human weapons cut through alien armor like paper. Human reflexes were faster than anything the aliens had ever faced. 300 years of focused evolution had turned humanity into the perfect warriors. Minho felt nothing as he fought. He had been trained to feel nothing. Emotions were weaknesses. Weaknesses got people killed. He was a weapon, nothing more. A weapon pointed at those who had murdered his ancestors. "Lieutenant," one of his soldiers reported. "We have located Chancellor Brix. He is in a bunker beneath the council hall. Lead the way." The squad fought through the city. They destroyed every military position they found. They captured every government building. The alien defenders fought bravely, but they had no chance. Human technology was centuries ahead of anything they possessed. Human soldiers were stronger, faster, and more determined than any force in the galaxy. Above the planet, the space battle was already over. The human fleet had destroyed every alien warship within 3 hours. Reinforcements had tried to arrive from other systems, but they found human ships waiting for them. Every jump point was blocked. Every escape route was closed. Talos Prime was completely surrounded. Throughout the galaxy, the same scene repeated on 947 worlds. Human fleets appeared above every species that had voted for humanity's extinction. Some surrendered immediately. Others fought. It made no difference. The result was always the same. Minho reached the council hall. The great building was burning. Its silver towers cracked and broken. Alien guards stood at the entrance, their weapons raised. They looked terrified. "Drop your weapons," Minho announced through his suit's speakers. "You will not be harmed if you surrender." The guards looked at each other. They could see the human soldiers surrounding them. They could see their dead comrades scattered across the plaza. Slowly, one by one, they put down their guns. Minho walked past them into the hall. His squad followed. They moved through corridors filled with smoke and debris. Paintings of alien heroes hung on the walls. Statues of famous leaders stood in alcoves. One statue caught Minho's attention. It was Chancellor Vorn, the being who had organized the attack on Earth. Minho stopped in front of the statue. He looked at the alien's face carved in white stone. This creature had killed 8 billion humans. He had ordered the destruction of every human colony. He had tried to erase humanity from existence. And for 300 years, he had been celebrated as a hero. Minho raised his weapon and fired. The statue exploded into 1,000 pieces. "Lieutenant," his sergeant said, "the bunker entrance is ahead." They found the entrance behind a hidden door. The door was made of thick metal, designed to withstand orbital bombardment. It took Minho's squad 30 seconds to cut through it. The bunker beyond was large and well-equipped. Hundreds of aliens huddled inside, including Chancellor Brix and his family. When they saw the human soldiers, many of them began to cry. Others fell to their knees, begging for mercy. Minho walked through the bunker until he stood before the Chancellor. Brix was smaller than he had appeared on the broadcasts. His gray skin had turned pale with fear. His 4 black eyes could not meet Minho's gaze. "Chancellor Brix," Minho said, "by order of the human navy, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity. You will be transported to stand trial for the actions of your government and your ancestors." "Please," Brix whispered. "We did not know. We were told humans were extinct. We thought it was over." "It is never over," Minho replied. "That is what you never understood about us. You can burn our worlds. You can kill our families. You can celebrate our death for 300 years, but as long as one human survives, we will remember. We will return. And we will have justice." Brix was taken away by human soldiers. His family was separated and held for questioning. The other aliens in the bunker were identified. Government officials were arrested. Military commanders were arrested. Everyone who had any connection to the war against humanity was taken into custody. Across the galaxy, the same process was happening. Human forces captured alien leaders by the thousands. They seized military bases and government buildings. They took control of communication networks and transportation systems. In less than 48 hours, the entire Galactic Council had collapsed. The alien armadas that tried to resist were destroyed without mercy. 947 species had built their fleets together over thousands of years. They had millions of ships, they had trillions of soldiers. It meant nothing. Human technology was so advanced that the aliens might as well have been fighting with sticks and stones. Commander Tejo watched the reports come in from his flagship. He was dying now. His doctors had told him he had only days left. But he had lived long enough. He had seen the beginning of the reckoning. He had seen the aliens understand their mistake. "Commander," Captain Sujin said softly, "we have won. The galaxy is ours." Tejo shook his head. "This is not a victory. This is payment. Victories are happy things. There is nothing happy about this. Then what is this? This is what happens when you try to destroy a people and fail. This is the consequence of your choices catching up with you. The aliens made their decision 300 years ago. Today, they finally paid the price." Sujin was quiet for a moment. "What happens now?" "Now we rebuild. Not just our civilization, but our souls. We have spent 300 years as weapons. Now we need to learn how to be human again. It will be hard. Many of us have forgotten what peace feels like. But we must try. Otherwise, we become no better than the beings who tried to destroy us." On Talos Prime, Lieutenant Minho stood in the ruins of the council hall. The fighting was over. The city was quiet. Around him, his soldiers helped alien civilians who had been injured in the battle. Humans carried alien children to safety. Humans gave food and water to alien refugees. Minho watched his soldiers show mercy to the same species that had shown humanity none. He wondered if this was right. Part of him wanted to let the aliens suffer, Part of him wanted revenge for every human who had died screaming as Earth burned. But another part of him remembered what the old teachers had said. Revenge was a tool, not a goal. They had taken revenge. They had brought the galaxy to its knees. Now they needed to build something better, something worth surviving for. "Lieutenant," a young soldier asked, "why are we helping them? After what they did to us?" Minho thought about the question for a long moment. "Because they are not the ones who hurt us," he finally said. "Their great-great-grandparents hurt us. These people were just born in the wrong time. They inherited a crime they did not commit. We cannot punish children for the sins of their ancestors forever. Then what do? We make sure it never happens again. We build a galaxy where no one can try to exterminate another species. We create laws and protections. We use our power to help the weak, not crush them. We become what the galaxy always feared we would become. The protectors. The guardians. The ones who stand between the innocent and those who would harm them." The soldier nodded slowly. He did not fully understand. He was young. But one day, he would. The reckoning was complete. 944 species had been judged. 3 species, the Bora, the Kelix, and the Ven, who had voted against the war, were protected and honored. The rest would answer for what their ancestors had done. But the killing was over. Now came the hard part. Now came the rebuilding. 50 years had passed since the decloaking. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Empress Yuna stood on the balcony of the Imperial Palace, looking out over the city below. This was New Seoul, built on the world that humans had chosen as their new capital. It was a beautiful city, filled with gardens and fountains and buildings that reached toward the sky. Children played in the streets. Families gathered in parks. Artists painted and musicians played and poets wrote verses about love and hope. Humanity had finally learned how to be human again. "Your Majesty," said her advisor, General Minho. He was old now, his hair white and his face lined with wrinkles, but his back was still straight and his eyes were still sharp. "The delegates from the Galactic Assembly have arrived." Yuna nodded. "Send them in." The delegates entered the throne room. They represented every species in the galaxy. There were tall Talix with their 4 black eyes. There were small Bora with their soft fur and gentle voices. There were Kelix with their tentacles, and Ven with their crystalline bodies. All of them bowed before the human empress. "Rise," Yuna said. "You are guests here, not servants." The delegates stood. The Talix representative stepped forward. His name was Doran, and he was the great-grandson of Chancellor Brix. Brix had been tried and found guilty of crimes against humanity. He had spent his final years in prison, watching the empire his species had built crumble around them. "Empress Yuna," Doran said, "I come to report that the memorial on Old Earth has been completed. Representatives from every species contributed to its construction. It lists the names of every human who died in the war, all 8 billion of them." Yuna was quiet for a moment. 8 billion names. 8 billion lives stolen. 8 billion stories that would never be told. No memorial could ever be enough. But it was a start. "Thank you, Delegate Doran," she said. "The memorial is appreciated. But I hope you understand that stone and metal cannot repay what was taken." "We understand, Your Majesty. We do not offer the memorial as payment. We offer it as acknowledgement. Our ancestors committed a terrible crime. We cannot undo what they did. But we can remember. We can make sure that no one ever forgets what happened. And we can work to ensure that it never happens again." This had been the great challenge of the last 50 years. How do you build a new society with species that tried to kill you? How do you trust beings whose grandparents burned your world? How do you move forward without forgetting the past? Humanity had struggled with these questions. Some had wanted revenge forever. Some had wanted to enslave the aliens, to make them suffer as humans had suffered. But the leaders of humanity had rejected that path. They had spent 300 years as weapons, They did not want to spend the next 300 years as tyrants. Instead, they had created something new. The Galactic Assembly replaced the old council. Every species had a voice, but humans held the final authority. New laws protected minority species from persecution. New courts prosecuted those who committed crimes against entire peoples. New fleets patrolled the borders, keeping peace and preventing wars. It was not perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was better than what had come before. General Minho, Yuna said. What news from the colonies? Minho stepped forward. The restoration of Earth is proceeding on schedule, Your Majesty. The atmosphere is finally stable again. Plants are growing. Animals are returning. In another 50 years, humans may be able to live there once more. Good. Earth is our home. We will never abandon it, no matter how long it takes to heal. The delegates watched this exchange with mixed emotions. Some felt guilt for what their ancestors had done. Some felt fear, knowing that humans could destroy them at any moment. Some felt hope, believing that this new order might actually work. Yuna saw all of these emotions on their faces. She understood them. She carried her own complicated feelings about everything that had happened. Her family had lost so much in the war. Her great-great-grandmother had been the original Admiral Yuna, the woman who had led the survivors into the darkness. Her blood carried 300 years of pain, but it also carried 300 years of hope. Hope that humanity would survive. Hope that they would grow strong. Hope that one day, they would build something better than revenge. Delegates, Yuna announced. I have a message for your peoples. Tell them that humanity does not seek eternal punishment. Tell them that we do not want to rule through fear. Tell them that we remember what was done to us. But we are choosing to move forward. We are choosing to build instead of destroy. We are choosing to protect instead of attack. She paused, looking at each delegate in turn. But also tell them this. If any species ever tries to exterminate another, humanity will stop them. If any government ever orders genocide, humanity will end that government. We have learned what it means to be helpless while others decide whether you deserve to live. We will never allow another species to experience that horror. This is our purpose now. This is why we survived. This is why we conquered the galaxy. Not for revenge, for protection. The delegates bowed again. They understood. Humanity had become the guardians of the galaxy, whether the galaxy wanted them or not. After the delegates left, Minho remained behind. He had served the Empress's family for his entire life. He had fought in the war. He had helped rebuild human civilization. Now, he was old, and his time was running out. You spoke well, he told Yuna. Your ancestors would be proud. Sometimes I wonder, she admitted. Did we do the right thing? We killed millions in the war. We conquered hundreds of worlds. We forced our rule on species that never harmed us directly. They voted, Minho said simply. Every species that supported the war against us made a choice. Choices have consequences. We did not start this conflict. We simply finished it, I know. But finishing it meant becoming something we never wanted to be. We became conquerors. Rulers. We became the thing the aliens always feared. No, Minho shook his head. They feared that we would destroy them the way they tried to destroy us. But we did not. We showed mercy. We rebuilt instead of burning. We gave them rights and voices and hope. That is not what they feared. That is something better. Yuna walked to the window and looked out at her city. Humans and aliens walked together in the streets below. Children of different species played together in parks. Shops sold goods from 1,000 worlds. This was the galaxy she had inherited. This was the future her ancestors had fought for. Do you think they are watching? She asked. The 8 billion who died on Earth. Do you think they can see what we have become? I do not know, Minho admitted. But I like to think so. I like to think they know that their deaths were not meaningless. They know that their children survived. They know that humanity rose from the ashes and became something greater than anyone could have imagined. Yuna smiled sadly. I hope you are right, old friend. She turned back to face the throne room. There was so much work still to do. Worlds needed governing. Disputes needed resolving. Fleets needed commanding. The weight of an entire galaxy rested on her shoulders, but she was human. Humans carried heavy weights. Humans survived impossible odds. Humans turned tragedy into triumph, and pain into purpose. That was what made them special. That was what made them dangerous. That was what made them the rulers of the stars. Come, General, she said. We have a galaxy to take care of. They walked out of the throne room together, an empress and an old soldier, two humans in a universe that had tried and failed to destroy their kind. The galaxy had made its choice 300 years ago. It had chosen to fear humanity instead of befriend them. It had chosen to attack instead of welcome. It had chosen extinction instead of coexistence. Now it lived with the consequences of those choices. Now it existed under human protection, human law, human mercy. The galaxy had learned its lesson too late, but perhaps, in time, it would learn something else. It would learn that humans could be trusted. It would learn that humans could be kind. It would learn that the beings they had feared so much were not monsters after all. They were just people. People who had survived the worst that the universe could throw at them. People who had turned their suffering into strength. People who had conquered the stars not because they wanted power, but because they wanted safety. And perhaps, in another 1,000 years, the galaxy would forget to be afraid. Perhaps humans and aliens would truly become friends. Perhaps the scars of the past would finally heal. But until that day, humanity would watch. Humanity would remember. Humanity would stand guard over a galaxy that had tried to kill them. Because that was what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They overcame. And they never, ever forgot. The end.